Hi everyone, welcome to this week's History Tour with Holly. I'm currently walking along one of the fire trails at the base of Mount Ainslie. Isabel and I, say hi.
Hi.
Have just walked up the back side of Mount Ainslie and we're listening to the final volume of Winston Churchill's History of World War II. And we're in 1944, late 1944. Actually, sorry, no, he's just moved into 1945. Early 1945, he's in February at the moment. But he's going through all of the ways that Britain and the United States and Russia are trying to set up, free the smaller countries of Germany and continue to finish the war, because Germany hasn't quite been conquered yet, but setting up the countries that have been freed from German power so they'll be stable. And it's really fascinating, listening to how they have sat around with the Greek constitutional monarchy, which had been sheltering in London, and the ELAS group, which were the rebels that had stayed in Greece and had formed a rebel army and had declared themselves the government. They're now trying, so Britain sat around with them, forced them to come to a table and create a stable government for Greece. And then they did the same in Poland with, again, the Polish constitutional monarchy, which had been sheltering in London and other places, with the Lublev government, who were part of the Warsaw rebels, part of the Warsaw Uprising, who formed themselves into the government for Poland. And of course neither of them got on, and so Britain and America, and to a smaller part Russia, forced them to come to the table and get together and figure out a government for the future for those countries. And it's fascinating listening to the huge part that Britain played in, of course, because it's from Winston Churchill's perspective, so it's all, Britain's so great. But it's fascinating listening to that huge part that Britain played in reconstructing the modern world. And I mean, the three powers agree that they wanted to ensure peace for 50 years. That was their goal. After all the suffering, after they've gone, the three, Roosevelt, Churchill and Stalin, after they had left power or died, and the people who took over from them who didn't remember the suffering and the struggle they'd been through in the war, they wanted to make sure that they set up peace for 50 years at least. And it made me think about today. Oh yeah, that's the point I was going to make. So it's interesting, I can sort of understand better now how Britain was so angry that, in post-war, the anti-colonial feeling from many of their colonies, and they'd fought so hard for peace in Europe and the Pacific, and then after that all of their colonies wanted to ditch them and be independent, but of course it had to happen. So I can kind of understand their bitter feelings about that a bit better now that I'm hearing how hard they worked at the end of the war. But maybe think about today, and we're not really at the end, but we're getting to the point where we're lifting restrictions on COVID, and there's been a lot of GIFs and videos and discussions about, especially within activist networks that I'm on email lists with, about how do we rebuild from this. But we really I've talked to so many people about how this has really forced us to go, what's actually important? Is going out for dinner important? No, it's our health. It's the health of our families and our friends, and it's health and safety of people, and it's about, we missed human connection so desperately. And it's so lovely now to be able to have people for dinner and to be able to visit people and that sort of thing. And I went to a funeral last Monday, and it was heartbreaking not to be able to hug people, but at least we could gather together to say goodbye. And it makes me think, the three powers worked so hard to prepare the world for peace. That was their goal. It made me think, what are we doing now? This has been a global pandemic, the like of which we haven't seen since 1919, the Spanish influenza. It's a long time. How are we going to make sure that we value connection, that we make an effort to connect with people better? How are we going to, in terms of education, I'm a teacher, how do we learn the lessons that we learned from remote education, and how for some kids it was heaps better than what they were used to. How are we going to make sure that we learn those lessons and that we ensure we use this as a learning opportunity for the future? I encourage you to write your comments below if there's things that you've noticed that you are going to change, or that maybe you're worried that aren't going to change, or suggestions you might have, concerns you might have. I'd love to hear about it in the comments below. And also I encourage you to talk to your friends and family about it, your colleagues. How are we going to change? What's going to change from this? Do we really need to spend our meal times on devices, or is it more important to talk to people? Things like that. I don't know. It's just one thing that's my beef. Anyway, we'll see you later. I don't think Isabel's fallen asleep. You say bye, Isabel? No, she's out. Nope. Anyway, lovely to talk to you. I love to hear your comments below. Subscribe if you like this video. Bye.